Political campaigns have now ended in Edo State ahead of tomorrow's governorship elections, with more than 5,000 bimodal voter accreditation systems, BVAS, and other sensitive materials now on ground in Edo State. The stage is now set for the election. Sensitive materials, including ballot papers and result sheets, arrived in Edo State on Wednesday via the Benin airport, and they were transported to secure storage facilities under tight security. ANEC officials and security personnel supervised the transportation of the election materials to ensure accountability. Joining us now from Benin, as we take a look at tomorrow's governorship election in Edo State, is Samson Itodo. He's a lawyer and founder and executive director of YIAGA Africa. Samson Itodo, thank you for joining us on The Morning Show. Hello, Samson Itodo. Can you hear me from the Lagos studio? Okay, we seem to have lost connection with him. But okay, tomorrow, Edo goes to the polls. Yeah. It looks like the battle of Edo. Okay, the military, they joined the 43,000 security persons that will be involved. The CDS himself visited. So it looks like there will be war in Edo State. But what can we say? I think we can reiterate the points that Edo State tomorrow should be about peace. 2, the people of Edo State should go there and say that the people are more important than the politicians. The people of Edo State should troop out and go and vote and say that the people are more important than the godfathers. This has been phrased as Obaseki versus Oshomole. It should not be about Obaseki versus Oshomole. It should be about the people. Critical institutions that are involved in this war or battle, whichever phrase you consider acceptable, should also ensure that tomorrow those institutions function. Security, INEC, and all the key persons who are there. We don't want to hear stories that BVAS will not work tomorrow. We don't want to hear that ballot papers were snatched. Above all, the people of Edo State must, that's the phrase, not should, must protect their mandate. Well, I understand Samson Itodo is now with us. Samson, are you there? Okay, Samson, good morning. Thank you for joining us on The Morning Show. Hello, Samson Itodo.
Yes, I can hear you. Good morning.
Okay,
Dr.
very
Abati.
quickly, I know, you guys at YIAGA Africa, you've monitored many elections. You're on the ground. Tell us your layout, your outlook as regards Edo State off-cycle governorship election tomorrow.
Well, thank you very much. And once again, good morning. It is clear that the elections will be holding tomorrow. From the meetings that held yesterday to the deployment of materials from the central bank to the local government, to the meetings with the DIG of police, Frank Mba, who is heading the police operations in the state, and all the political actors and voters, everyone is prepared, to cast their vote tomorrow. Yes, indeed, this election is organized in the context of, economic hardship, volatile security climate, but also, the challenge of this deep-rooted distrust, for democratic institutions like INEC, the security agencies, and political parties. But from what we get in the state, that people are prepared, they are going to cast their vote, But there are several concerns that remain unaddressed. The first one is the issue relating to security. Yesterday, we did have a meeting with the DIG. He assured, all stakeholders that they are fully prepared, they are deployed. But then yesterday, there was an incident in Itodo, local governments where INEC office is located, the INEC local government office. Shortly after the sensitive materials left CBN to the local government office, there was, a mammoth crowd, and I'll say thugs, we don't know for which political party they represent, that besieged the INEC office. We cannot confirm if they carted away with those sensitive materials, but based on what INEC did inform us, and the top brass of INEC, was that they asked the security agencies, the matter was escalated, and the security agencies quelled, that situation. But what that simply tells you is that in battleground LGAs, there needs to be a fortification of security in those local governments, because what happened yesterday just gives us a sign of what could happen today, tomorrow, and the days after. And this is one concern that we have. Yes, these police have deployed, but there's a great need to continue to monitor the situation, to quell any activities or thugs that will disrupt this election. Because one of the concerns we have expressed, and we see a potential of the instrumentalization of violence to undermine, but to also impact and influence the outcome of this election. And this is why, voters are raising concerns about their safety, and that needs to be taken seriously. I think the second issue is around logistics. Yes, this election is conducted, at a time where there is, rainfall, there is flooding. It's been raining intermittently in the last 48 hours in the state. We expect that perhaps there will be rain tomorrow, but we hope that materials will get to the polling units, tomorrow at 7:30 a.m. Because what we have seen in previous elections is this tactical, delay of commencement in certain locations, that cast a doubt, a shadow of doubt on the process, but also prevents, voters from accessing materials to exercise their franchise. And we want to call on the transport unions, as most especially, not to default in their contractual obligations that they have entered with INEC, but also security agencies to provide the required security that INEC officials need to deploy. Because if they don't deploy, it will delay commencement of accreditation and voting in certain locations, which might undermine, the impact of the votes that will come from those particular locations.
Thank you for highlighting these very important factors, critical success factors for tomorrow's elections. We can't talk about security enough or logistics. In fact, one of the things I'd wanted to ask is around preparation of INEC staff themselves to be mobilized to go to the different polling units and to arrive on time so that we're able to start the elections early. But beyond that, beyond Itodo local government area, where are some of the hotspots as well, or potential red flag areas? Just for people to, especially for security agencies, to be aware. And then, are you concerned about the heavy militarization of this election?
Well, let me start with the last question about concerns about militarization. The whole concept of militarization in elections is not necessarily about the amount of security personnel deployed for elections. It's about how violence, is used to influence electoral outcomes. This election, is one where the people of Edo State have been deprived of the opportunity to constructively engage those who have presented themselves to seek political power. Because this election has just been nothing but a clash of personalities, egos, rather than issues and politics. And we've seen the incendiary statements that have heated the entire polity. And it appears the political parties and actors are gearing up for, for showdown. So if you look at Edo South Senatorial District. Virtually all the local governments are battlegrounds. They are battlegrounds because when you look at the total number of registered voters and also the total number of those who collected their PVCs, Edo South recorded 52% of PVC collection rate. Edo North recorded 28%, and Edo Central recorded 16%, turnout. So there's a larger concentration, of attention on Edo South, and who, in the last, throughout the history of this state, all the winners or people who have emerged winners in this election, you have to win substantial local governments in Edo South, especially Oredo local government where Benin is located and Ikpo-Baoka. These are the two local governments that have the highest number of registered voters. Ikpo-Baoka has about 400,000, Oredo has about 300,000. And then Orionwo, we always joke that Orionwo is the Kano of Edo State. That's also another local government. Ovia Northeast, Ovia Southeast are also, hotspots of violence. If you go to the central, you look at Esako, if you go to North, you look at Akoko Edo, these are battleground local governments that we consider flashpoint of violence because politicians are going to deploy all sorts of shenanigans to secure majority of votes from those locations.
Very interesting, Mr. Itodo, what you discussed, and I just took this phrase from what you just commented, the clash of personalities and a lot of ego drive. And I was just looking at the personalities, the three key players in these elections who are contesting, Mr. Apata, Asoye Godalo, and Okwebolo. And these are individuals who are well-educated. They hold very important positions in the economy, as it were, in terms of their education, in terms of what they've done. If you look at Apata, for example, a former president of the Nigerian Bar Association. Godalo is someone in the legal field as well in terms of corporate law and all of that. Okwebolo is a businessman. He also has degrees from the universities and all of that. He's also a senator. So you're talking about personalities, individuals who are decent in the society, who are respected. And in those states and across Nigeria, you have folks who are really at this level contesting for governorship election. So you give it to Edo State that they produce sons and daughters who can hold their tough in the economy, in leadership position, governance, as it were. But again, when it all descends to the field of ego and clash of personalities rather than issues and policies that would take the Edo State as one of the 36 states of the Federation and the FCT to yet another level in the face of the economic situations we find ourselves. How does that hit you at YIAGA Africa in terms of what would be the outcome at the end of the day if all energies and fund and whatever salvos are done at the campaign level just to get the votes? What happens the morning after?
I think that it's really disappointing, and I totally agree with you. The quality of leaders that the state have produced, the level of education and sophistication of the political leaders that have come from this state, you would expect that in an election of this nature, that the candidate would rush to platforms to debate issues, to debate policies. Unfortunately, even though there were attempts to host debates, there were one or two debates, not all the candidates showed up in those debates. And it's really sad because what the parties and the candidates are actually serving people is a fait accompli at the end of the day, because people, have not had the opportunity to interrogate some of their policies or ask them direct questions. Because some of the campaigns, it's really about dancing, about music, and about casting aspersions, about political opponents. So it's sad. And I really want to urge the political actors, in the state, that campaigns have been suspended based on provisions of the Electoral Act, and is to continue, to respect the rules of the game as you go into the election tomorrow. Some of the parties signed the peace accord, and they have made commitments that whatever the outcome of this election is, where they have grievance with the outcome, they will ventilate such grievances using civil and legal means as enshrined, in our laws. That's what we expect them, to do. I think that we don't know what will happen tomorrow. We have expectations that the election will go well. We have to urge the voters, who are the kingmakers in this election, to show up and cast their vote. In the last 2 election cycles, the turnout for voters in the Edo election have been abysmally poor. In 2016, it was 36%. In 2020, it was 27%. We don't know what the turnout will be. And given this context, we expect, lower turnout, but we want to urge the people of Edo State that don't fall for the gimmicks of those politicians who have decided rather to focus on the issues that concern you, to attack each other, and come out, cast your vote, for parties and candidates of your choice. The security agencies have assured you that your security will be protected. Please show up, cast your vote, and if possible, remain there to protect your vote. However, if there is imminent danger or any threat to your security, please leave the polling station. But this election is going to be determined by how vigilant and how resilient, people are, as well as impartiality on the part of our security agencies, and also INEC's competence and integrity in managing all the aspects of the election, including the results collation process, which is the weakest link in our electoral process.
Okay, Samson Itodo, I know you have your team on the ground in Edo State. Can you tell us about how YIAGA Africa, has deployed persons on the ground, and probably the civil society presence monitoring the election? And then second point, you said Edo South has the majority of the voters. Now, how do you think this will play out in terms of outcomes? Do you think that the Labour Party candidate Olumide Akpata, who comes from Edo South, will gain an advantage as a result of that? You just reading the tea leaves. But first, the civil society observer group presence in Edo State.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Abati. Let me just start with the second question, because the protocol and the principle of election observation does not allow we as election observers to get into that kind of analysis and projections, especially prior to the elections, because as you know, we are more interested in the process, the transparency and credibility of the process, and not necessarily the outcome or the chances that political actors and candidates do have. But what I can say is that Edo South is a battleground as a result of 3 factors based on the report that we have issued. The first relates to the electoral history and the voting pattern, in Edo South. The second criteria was around the demographic analysis and who are the kind of voters that you would find in places like Edo South, because that's where the state capital, is located. Very cosmopolitan in nature. You have Northerners, you have Igbos, you have Yorubas, centrally located in the southern part of Edo State. So, and then you look at, the voting population, the number of registered voters across. In fact, all the local governments in Edo South, seven of them, have registered voters of over 100,000. And the 2 local governments, that have the highest number of registered voters is Oredo and Ikpobaoka. So by virtue of these variables, that particular senatorial district is a battleground. You have to win a substantial amount of votes in Oredo and Ikpobaoka if you're going to meet the first criteria, for being declared a winner, which is securing majority of lawful votes. And the second criteria is, you would have scored 25% in 2/3 of the local governments of Edo State. And in Edo State, you have 18 local governments, and so only 12 of the 18 local governments. But to speak to YIAGA Africa's deployment, we're deploying our process results verification for transparency methodology, formerly known as PVT, where in all the wards of the state, and we are monitoring the process, and we've deployed this methodology to detect any fraud, but also verify the accuracy of the results. And we want to urge the people, you know, as we have done in previous election, if the results declared by INEC, you know, have been altered, have been manipulated,
yes,
the PRVT methodology will detect it, and we would expose this like we did in previous elections.
Well, that's excellent. Thank you so much, Samson Itodo, for joining us this morning, and just to hope that you and your team stay safe out there, and we're looking forward to a free, fair, credible, and safe election tomorrow in Edo State. Thank you.